Hey, thanks, guys. Definitely excited to be here. Definitely excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, something that I've really dug into over our career, pricing. I think pricing is one of the most important topics around selling farm products. It's often misunderstood. We've definitely learned a lot to share some of our hacks and secrets that we sort of developed over 8 years of doing this. So a little bit about me. Back in 2012, I was finishing up my time as an officer in the Marine Corps. During sniper training, I got hit by a tick that had Lyme and started to suffer a bunch of health issues, chronic inflammation, a lot of problems, and started around that time, 2007, hearing about paleo and the power of real food to kind of help us. And I started feeling a whole lot better just after 2 weeks of reducing inflammation in my body and eating healthy. From that experience, pretty much decided that I was all in. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a change. I wanted to eat healthier. So started to go into the store and really buying these free range and cage free and pasture raised products. Did that for about a year. I was all about it, living at the beach with my wife in Newport Beach and having a normal life now as a CPA after the military. But I got pretty disenchanted when I learned that free range chickens typically don't even go outside. Pasture raised was a term that had sort of been hijacked by corporate America. Organic could be factory farmed. And I was pretty bummed about the industry as a whole. And so at that time, myself and my family was joking around about getting some chickens for my in-laws' backyard. This was back in 2012. And my brother-in-law, Rob, sort of disappeared from the room, came back about 5 minutes later, and he said, "Hey, guys, I ordered 50 chicks. They're going to be here in 2 weeks." And instantly sort of said, "What are you talking about? Are you crazy? You know, we have no idea what we're doing," but picked up a copy of Pasture Poultry Profits. And so some of the stuff that I talk about today is actually coming from Pasture Poultry Profits and really thinking about this. It is a great lifestyle. I love being out there with my family and my kids, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And so pricing really does circle back to making sure this is a business, and there's nothing regenerative or sustainable about a company that's sort of losing money year over year, putting yourself into deep debt. And so my goal with this is to keep everybody in this space. You know, I love this space and I want more people to be successful. So financial regenerative agriculture is just as important as regenerative ag in the soil. Just a picture of me and my family. So like I said, sort of up and left really good paying corporate jobs in Newport Beach to move onto this little 2-acre farm out in Temecula, California. That's where we've sort of set our roots down for farming out here. We run one of the largest pasture poultry productions in the world. We do about 10,000 birds a week right now. We wholesale to chefs and restaurants and butcher shops and corporate cafeteria. Well, we did do corporate cafeterias before they all shut down. We would sell to the Ubers and Googles and Snapchats of the world, and we do a lot of direct to consumer online as well. So we actually founded 2 companies. So back in 2012, we started with Primal Pastures. It's important to sort of note the goal with Primal Pastures has always been this very high-end premium direct to consumer, only certified organic, only soy-free meats. And so we've done chicken, lamb, beef, pork. We've even done wild caught seafood. We've done some like value add products like biodynamic coffee, but everything is very, very ultimate premium, high price, with a goal to serve the best food possible to the people in Southern California. That was awesome. And we love doing that business. We still have that business. It's a successful business. But around 2015, I personally started to get bummed that the products that we were producing were not something that we could have afforded kind of growing up. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. These products were so expensive. And I felt so strong about this regenerative agriculture movement and pasture poultry and nutrient density that my brothers and I basically said, man, we have to do something about the price on this because it's just not affordable or accessible for so many people. And so in 2015, we started Pasturebird as really a mission to scale pasture raised poultry into a national company, a national brand, and really bring it up to the volume where it becomes a lot more affordable and accessible. And so when we talk about the goals of those 2 companies, they're very, very different. because of that, they have very different products. Pasturebird's typically selling in a food service case, 40-pound case, 8 wogs or 12 wogs. That's whole chickens, where Primal Pastures typically selling in retail packs. So, single individually wrapped cryovac bird or parts like drumsticks or 1 pound packs of thighs. Primal Pasture is also an aggregation platform. So we're bringing in, beef. We raise some beef, but then we also bring in some beef. We raise some pork, but we also bring in some pork from these partner ranches and partner suppliers. Pasturebird only produces what we sell. So both totally great businesses, but really, really different. I'll hopefully highlight some of the difference, how we think about pricing for those two. Getting into the nitty gritty, pricing products. This is where I see mistakes made all the time. The number one mistake I see in pricing farm products is that we use cost plus. Cost plus is the idea that, and this is great, right? We go and figure out our costs down to the dime or down to the nickel. I'd encourage you to probably not go down to the penny unless you're at a really big scale, but we try to get close, very close on what our pricing looks like. And then there was this thing floating around within pasture poultry, at least for a while, that said, okay, for a whole bird, figure out your costs, add $5 to it, and then that's going to be your price. And when I heard that with my accounting background and an MBA and kind of looking at this thing like a business, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. That is the worst advice I think I've ever heard in my life. Don't use cost plus. That doesn't mean don't know your costs. Definitely do figure out your costs, do your accounting, get your books in order, hire an accountant if you have to, and know what it costs you to produce a whole chicken. And I'll talk about chicken a lot just because that's our specialty, but this applies across the board for a cow or a pig or anything else. So know your numbers, but don't use your cost to drive your price. Much better is look at competitive-based pricing. So when we go out to price a new product, back in 2012, it was a little trickier because there weren't so many pasture-based farms already out there online. Now it's actually easier. I can go to White Oak and I can go to Polyface and I can go to Belcampo and I can kind of look around and see what people are asking for a pound of drumsticks or, a whole chicken or whatever your product is going to be. But what I used to do is just go into Whole Foods and I would literally go in, I'd find the most expensive whole chicken in Whole Foods. Typically that'd be like a Gap 5, I call it quasi pasture raised. Definitely says pasture raised on it, whether it really was or not, that's up for debate. But I go and find that and say that was 26, 27 bucks. I basically said, look, I know our product is better than that, significantly better than that. So I need to be above that. Even though it sounds like a lot, I want to be looking at my competition to really drive my pricing. Of course, I also need to make money. So I need to factor in my cost a little bit, but I'm not just taking my cost and adding it a premium to that. So I'd really encourage people to look at competition-based pricing. Talk about meeting your goals. I mean, it's really important to understand the difference of fixed and variable costs. This is a basic in accounting. Your fixed costs is stuff like your land, your labor, your rent, your water, kind of what you pay to actually run the day-to-day business. Your variable costs is stuff like the chick, the feed, the harvest, the packaging. So you need to make sure to set an overall margin that's going to cover your fixed costs. So whatever your volume is, say you can do $100,000 in sales. If your fixed cost is going to be $40,000, you need to make sure to have a 60% margin to be able to cover those fixed costs. So really meeting your goals. This also goes back to the difference of Pasturebird versus Primal Pastures. With Primal Pastures, we didn't have any outside funding. It was purely bootstrapping and funding based on our own balance sheet and the profits that we were bringing in. So we had to price at a margin that let us stay afloat at all times. With Pasturebird, we're trying to scale a national company. So it's okay for us to take a little lower margin, potentially dip into the red, and then go out to the bank or go to investors to supplement to help us get to that scale where ultimately we will make a lot more money. I use the example sometimes of I'd rather make $1 per chicken on 1 million chickens than $10 per chicken on 100, right? Because at the end of the day, that's more money to go back to growing the operation. That third point, don't be afraid to ask a premium, is probably one of the most important in this whole thing. I see this mistake constantly. People feel like we're selling commodity corn or soybeans. Look, we are not. We're in a highly niche, highly differentiated space We're not selling a commodity product. And it's really important to get your story right and realize what you're doing is so vastly different. And you need to be confident going out and asking for a premium on your product, a big premium a lot of times. I know in Walmart, you could go out and buy a $5 chicken right now. Costco, it's already cooked for $5. If you want to go on to Primal Pastures right now, it's probably $35 to buy a whole chicken. That doesn't matter, right? Because you're selling to a completely different consumer that values what you're doing over that factory farm bird inside of Costco. One thing we talk about a lot is value add and cutting up whole birds. So we've done both sides of this all the time. We update the math constantly and really understand what your costs are associated with cutting up a whole bird. It sounds really great to be able to sell boneless, skinless breast for $18 a pound when your whole chicken sells for $28, right? But the reality is sometimes you might be surprised at how much goes into the actual processing, cutting up, packaging, and then making sure you're actually having good sell-through on those items like the wings and the drumsticks. And again, I'm talking about chicken, but at the end of the day, you have equivalents in the beef and pork world as well. I know those pork shoulders will back you up sometimes. Those beef London broils, they'll back you up sometimes. So just because you're getting some great price on the boneless, skinless breast doesn't mean that you're necessarily selling through all of your other products and getting full price. That being said, we make a lot more money in our operation. We make a lot more money cutting the bird up than necessarily selling it whole. So make sure you're really looking at the math and doing the math constantly on whole birds versus cut ups. And same thing goes for beef or pork. Taking bigger cuts or smaller cuts, ground beef, make sure you're really doing the math on all those cut up products. I talk about this a lot, but there's 3 core products in my experience that the customer looks at that they really know the price over and over and they kind of understand it. Those 3 items are the whole chicken, a 1-pound pack of ground beef, and 1 dozen eggs. I found that we have a lot of price elasticity, which means we can move pricing around on other products, but those 3 items, people generally know the cost of them in the grocery store. And so when they come to your site, they're going to look to those 3 to decide internally in their head if you're an expensive place, a reasonable place, or a cheap place. We kind of fight to keep those 3 items within reason, and then we put more margin on any product other than those. But if somebody comes onto your site and they see a dozen eggs for $12 or $13, they're going to instantly kind of go, "Oh wow, that's a really expensive place." Maybe that plays into your strategy of being, ultra premium, ultra high end. That's fine. But I think that they look to those 3 items really specifically to get a gauge for kind of where you're at. This is one of my most key core takeaways with pricing. We have to do a better job as an industry. And I say this kind of all small farmers and direct marketers across the board of making our products more simple to the consumer. Like them or not, ButcherBox has done an amazing job with this. You go into their site and it's 2 clicks until you are subscribed and you have product hit your doorstep every single week. And they have grown very rapidly because of that ease and simplicity. And it's a really cool thing that they've done to make it so easy for people. We started out with Primal Pastures, really focused on a la carte ordering individual cuts. So you could come on and order a 1 pound, approximately, we use buckets, but 1 pound or so, skirt steak. And then you could go buy a half a pound or so of, chicken livers, and you can buy 1 pound of ground beef. And we would go individually pack that and ship it and the whole thing. The more we go through this business, though, the more we understand the consumer doesn't even really want all those options. It's frankly overwhelming for them. They do not care about the difference of a lamb loin chop, sirloin chop, or a shoulder chop. They just want some lamb to eat. Or really, they might even just want some good meat to eat. And they might just want to support you as a local farm, even more than all that stuff. So keeping it simple for them is huge. One way we do that is kind of on bundles. Bundles are one of the great sort of hidden hacks of this space, the direct-to-consumer space. If you're not doing them, you should be. Just a couple examples of this. We use something called a farmer stash with Primal Pastures. So basically it's $100, $200, $300, or $400 box. They can use it on a subscription or a one-time order. We determine 100% of what goes into that box. So it can be beef, lamb, chicken, or pork. And we get to decide what goes in there. So it helps us A, manage inventory, but B, it gives the customer a quick one click, and then it's at your doorstep kind of ordering option. Simplicity is huge. Another big mistake that I see a lot is pricing by weight. I've seen it over and over. I've seen it for 4 or 5 years. I think it's a big mistake. In my experience, we've sold, I don't even know how many, 100,000 orders or something like that in the last 8 years. And not once have I seen somebody come back and say, hey, this wasn't the exact weight, that you promised or something like that. We do it by buckets. So for whole chicken, for example, we'll do like a 3 to 4 pound whole bird is X price. A 4 to 5 pound whole bird is X price, a little bit higher. A 2 to 3 pound is X price, a little bit lower. That instead of, selling it at $4 a pound and it's 2.85 pounds, and now I got to go manually enter in exactly how much that was. In my experience, the customer would rather have the ease and simplicity, know exactly what they're getting. And if they get a few birds that are 3.2 when they ordered a 3 to 4, I don't think that they'll complain. In my experience, they won't. And if they do, then send them a few 3.8s the next time. It's just not that big of a deal. That idea of just eliminating the guesswork, like people don't like not knowing what they're going to get. Flat rates is how we built the whole business. This kind of goes back to production and how that factors into price. So I'm a production guy. I'm on the farm, well, less now than I used to be, but I used to be on the farm every single day doing chores. I know how hard it is to decrease costs based on production, either in efficiency of labor or bringing feed down or feed conversion going up. It's a very difficult and challenging thing to lower the cost of the cost of production on your whole chicken by $1. It is so much easier to go in and add $1 to your price. So make sure you're doing that. Do a lot of testing. In the online world, it's awesome because I can raise and lower my prices without anybody really even knowing. So we do this all the time. We'll bump up drumsticks by $2. We'll drop down thighs by $1. We'll see how that affects demand. It's a concept called elasticity. It's how much the demand changes based on the change in the price. In my experience, these markets are very elastic right now. Elastic means you can move price and people don't really have a huge reaction to it, especially if you stay away from that whole bird, the dozen eggs, or the 1 pound of ground beef. I found that you can bump stuff up, down, around, kind of however you want to do it and test things out. Make sure you understand if you got a bunch of pent up demand and you can bump up your cost of a pack of drumsticks by $1 or $2 and it doesn't really affect the demand too much, it's something to really think about. This is sort of what we're talking about with, fewer products. The idea of bundling is huge. I know there's 27 different cuts when we cut up a whole cow. Does that mean I should have 27 cuts offered on my website though? Maybe not. So when you look at bundling, putting things together, not worrying so much about the difference of a New York versus a ribeye versus filet. People want to buy an awesome pasture-raised steak from you and they want your story. They don't necessarily care if it's, what cut all the time. So think about trying to reduce your SKUs. Collaboration, aggregation, these are both huge. Don't even have time to go into a ton of it, but we like to do, collaboration with the local salt company that we're getting ready to kick off. We promote them, they promote us. We put it together in this cool bundle. We're doing an offer on Pasturebird.com right now with Reload Rub, which is really cool. Awesome paleo spice company. So you buy 4 of our chickens, you get a Reload Rub added into it. It's great PR for them, great for us. We went on their podcast, kind of did the whole thing. Aggregation, whole nother subject, but it's the idea of working with other producers, in your area or that align with your values. I might be the best at producing pasture-raised chicken, and I think we are one of the best pasture-raised chicken producers in the country, but I'm not one of the best at beef. However, my customers all want to buy pasture-raised beef. So if I have the captive audience, if I worked so hard to get these customers, maybe I should be working with a local beef company or somebody that aligns with our values to go and sell beef to my customers. And ultimately, those customers are the best marketers in the world. It means a lot more for somebody, friend or family, to go say, oh, I ordered from Pasturebird and it was this great experience, I love them, than for them to read, even the best written ad that pops up on their Facebook feed. Just remember, we're not selling commodity products. Focus on value-added products. In a lot of ways, this just reminds me of a bone broth that we rolled out. Nobody else has an organic, pasture-raised, soy-free bone broth out there anywhere in the world with my story. And I got to make sure I price my products that way. You can always move the price down, right? That's very easy, but trying to increase your price is tough. So make sure you kind of open up strong and make sure you're competing where nobody else is. For example, the bone broth. This is a picture from our Instagram. It's one of our customers, making this amazing, looks like a chicken foot sticking out of there. So it's kind of got a cool vibe to it, but customers really do become your best marketers. So you want to kind of incubate that and support it as much as possible. In summary, I encourage you guys to be wary of cost plus pricing. I know that it's sort of the run of the mill and it's how a lot of people do it, but I'd avoid it at all costs. Get your costs straight, know what it costs you to produce a product, but you want to look at the competition to really figure out where your pricing is at. And then kind of last but not least, focus on those bundles, lower your SKUs, keep it really simple and easy for customers to order. I love kind of the idea that they can come on and order within a few clicks and have product delivered, and even better, subscribe. So in a few clicks, they're just getting a box delivered to their house all the time. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about what we're up to at Primal or at Pasturebird or at APA, I'm also on the board of APA, which is the American Pasture Poultry Producers Association. You can check us out anywhere on social, primalpastures.com, pasturebird.com, apppa.org. Also check out the new getrealchicken.com website. That's a APA-based project where we're looking to connect buyers and connect directly with farms. So you can check out getrealchicken.com too. Got a lot of cool videos on there and stuff. Hope to connect soon. And I hope kind of some of these tricks and hacks keep you guys as successful as possible for 2020 and beyond. Thanks for your time.